Hey guys, Magnetical here, and welcome back to my series of videos where we take video game systems, we clean them up, repair them if need be, and sometimes we mod them. And today we're going to be taking a final look at the Sega Saturn that we've been working on. This is the same Sega Saturn that we got off eBay a couple months ago, and we ended up cleaning it up after we tore it apart, and we were having laser issues, and all we had to do, thankfully, was replace the ribbon, and it ended up working just fine. We also added an ODE, the Fenrir Duo, which is an optical drive emulator that lets you play the games off a micro SD card. So today we're going to be focusing mainly on finishing touches for the system, accessories that I got, just so we can go ahead and finish this up and start playing this system full time. I will tell you guys what those things are as we progress through the video. But again, if this is your kind of thing where somebody goes through, cleans systems up, repairs them, and even mods them, make sure you hit that subscribe button. That way you're notified every time I post a video. I am super excited to end this Sega Saturn journey so we can go ahead and move on to another system. Again, thank you guys so much for joining me on this, and let's go ahead and get started. For those of you that saw my videos on the PlayStation, you guys know that I want my system to look good, and the Sega Saturn is no exception to this. Now, as much as I love ODEs, one of the things I don't like is that they leave a giant hole inside of your system, because once you open up the lid, there is no laser there anymore. You took it out so you can replace it with an ODE board. Luckily, there are companies out there that create mounts for this particular purpose, and the one I tend to go to is Laser Bear Industries. Now, they create very high quality mounts so you can make everything look flush and clean, and basically like nothing even happened to the system. I did the same thing with the PlayStation. We're going to be doing the same thing for the Sega Saturn. Before we get started on that, I'll let you know that Laser Bear Industries only use SD cards on their mounts, but luckily you can use a micro SD card and an SD card adapter and it'll work just fine. I can go ahead and verify that for you guys as well. So let's go ahead and install this now. What you're going to need is going to be the Sega Saturn system, the mount from Laser Bear Industries. I got a 256 gigabyte SD card for that. We're going to need some tools so we can open up the system. And that is basically it. So with the system, I'm going to go ahead and flip this around, and I'm going to go ahead and take out this little door. I always forget to take this off, but I've been pretty good about it lately. This is a little door that protects the battery. So put that aside, and we're going to go ahead and flip this over like this, and we're going to take off the screws that hold this shell together. For a full breakdown and cleanup of this video, make sure to check out my videos on cleaning up the system and also installing the Fenrir Duo ODE. Now that we take off all the screws, the shell, the top shell, should come off rather easily. And there's all the work that we did previously. I'm going to go ahead and remove the micro SD card now. Put that aside somewhere safe. And I'm going to go ahead and unplug the power to the Fenrir ODE here. I'm going to gently move this apart to the side here. And I was going to take off the power supply, but before I did that, I'm going to go ahead and just remove the Fenrir ODE altogether. So make sure you put that somewhere safe. I love the red. I think it's so pretty. And now we can start working on the rest of the system. We're pretty much going to break down this system all the way down. So there's going to be the power supply we're going to have to worry about. There's only one screw that holds it together on the front. So I'm going to go ahead and flip it over. And there should be two more screws in the back here. Make sure you kind of memorize where you put those screws. All these screws are kind of like different sizes. It's one of the more confusing systems to work with, honestly. But once you take off the two back screws, you can go ahead and flip this over again, just so I can show the front of the system, and I can go ahead and unplug the power cord here to the power supply, and that should free up the power supply completely. So I'm going to go ahead and gently wiggle it out like this, lift it up, put that aside somewhere safely. So with that taken care of now, all we have to worry about is all the screws. Again, I do have a video on this if you guys want a slower version so you guys know which screws are which, but here I'm just going to go ahead and speed it up and remove all the screws so we can go ahead and remove, first of all, this little power button here. Put that aside. But more importantly, the shielding here. So I'm going to go ahead and use one of these pillars to lift it up. Don't forget to feed the power cord wire through that hole there. I'm having a little bit of difficulty there, but once you get that freed up, we can go ahead and put the bottom of the system away, and we're going to focus on this middle shielding here. So we're going to go ahead and take off those pillars. There should be 4 screws holding one together. So 1 screw for one pillar each. And once you take those off, all you have to do is pinch the sides so you can go ahead and pop those pillars out. It's pretty easy. You shouldn't have to use very much force at all to make this work. Alright, so that's the middle shielding, and I'm going to go ahead and collect these. We won't be using these anymore. If you want to hang on to them, that's up to you if you want to put the system back together to its original form. But here is the mount that I'll be using. There are 4 long screws holding this whole thing together. So I'm going to go ahead and take off all 4 of them. And just holding this mount in my hand, it just feels like such good quality. Same thing as the PlayStation 1. You can just tell these guys really care about the products that they produce. It's just incredible high quality. I love the texture on the top as well. I'm trying to split this open because there's 2 parts to this. There's the bottom base and then there's the actual mount itself. So we're going to go ahead and grab the shielding, and I'm going to grab the bottom, the base, and I'm going to go ahead and just make sure and measure out everything as far as the corners go. Make sure everything looks good. And once you got that down, you can go ahead and flip this over. Now they do provide you with screws so you can put this together. Now learn from my mistakes. These little tiny screws that I'm screwing here, they are very, very fragile. That's the only thing that I have to complaint wise about this base. So I actually broke 2 of them. So you'll see me put the 2 on the right. Now it's still very sturdy. I'm sure it would have been much more sturdy if I was able to get all 4, but I'm telling you this from experience, just be super gentle when screwing those tiny screws in. So I'm going to go ahead and collect all these screws here and put them off to the side, but the base is pretty much complete. So now we can go ahead and grab the bottom half of the system. And we're going to grab the metal shielding that we were working on. I'm going to go ahead and feed the ribbon of the Fenrir ODE through the hole here. And I'm going to go ahead and connect it to the motherboard while I have it. It's just a lot easier to do it now than to do it later. Alright, next up, I'm going to go ahead and grab the shielding, and I'm going to go ahead and make sure I lay it flush the way it's supposed to, but don't forget to feed the power cord first. I have done that before. It is not fun to unscrew everything after you realize what you've done. So make sure you put the power cord through, let everything fall flush, push it in a little bit. And I was going to keep working on the Fenrir ODE mount here, but instead what I decided to do was to put all the screws on the system back together. That way I'm done with that and I don't have to worry about it anymore. Here we are putting in the power button at the end, and I'm going to go ahead and put in the power supply as well. I'm just going to let this fall in like this and gently push it down. And I'm going to go ahead and screw the front screw of this together. So yeah, at this point, once we're done with all the screws on the system and putting in the power supply, all we have to focus on is going to be the mount itself. And that's kind of like the strategy I was going for here. I'm going to go ahead and take the power cord here, and I'm going to go ahead and feed it in the back like so. If you find, like right here, I'm having a little bit of issues. So usually I just use like a screwdriver or something just to kind of push the wire all the way through. That way it's laying at the bottom of the system. And once you have it down, you can go ahead and plug in the power cord. Everything looks pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and flip this system around. And while I'm here, I'm going to go ahead and screw the 2 screws here for the power supply. All right, make sure it's nice and tight. Now I'm going to go ahead and flip this over or around one more time. And all we have to worry about now is going to be the Fenrir ODE. So here's the mount. I'm going to go ahead and grab all 4 of the long screws that we were working with earlier. I'm just going to go ahead and just put them into the mount here. Later on, all we have to do is just put it in place and then start screwing those down. All right, so now that that's ready, I'm going to go ahead and set it aside. I'm going to move the board and place this little bracket here. You actually have to place it down first. It took me a little bit of time to figure this out, but again, you're learning from my mistakes. So make sure you put the bracket down first, and then you can put the board on top of that bracket. With the ribbon connected, I'm going to go ahead and take the power connector, and I'm going to go ahead and plug it into the Fenrir ODE. I'm going to go ahead and let it sit in place like so. And then now we can go ahead and take the actual mount. The ribbon here, it connects into the micro SD card slot, just like the PlayStation 1 that we bought. So that'll transfer all the data from the Fenrir ODE into the SD card. With that done, I'm going to go ahead and set the mount. Make sure all the holes and screws line up with the holes on the bottom bracket, and then we can screw the whole thing back together. Perfect. This looks so good. I can't wait to put the lid on it so I can see what it looks like. So here's the top shell, and I'm going to press the open button to see what it looks like. Oh, that looks so good. Oh yeah, I love it. Now that we've installed the mount into the Sega Saturn, we can move on to some of the accessories, and my favorite accessories is always the video cables. So I went on Retro Gaming Cables and I bought a pair of their component cables here. And if you're in Europe, this is always a great option to go with. And I also went ahead and bought the component cables from HD Retrovision. Now, as far as like the video quality goes, I couldn't really tell any difference, to be honest with you. But as far as the build quality goes, definitely HD Retrovision. For retro gaming cables, we'll just have that as a backup for now. But as far as these go, I mean, you can tell this thing is just built with quality in mind, and you can tell this thing is just hefty. Like, I love the build quality. It just feels like it'll last you a very long time. I kind of decided to move away from SCART only because there's so many options and things you kind of have to consider. I kind of wanted a more plug and play option with my RetroTink. I didn't want to worry about sync on Luma or C-Sync or composite video as sync, that kind of stuff. That is stuff you do have to consider when purchasing SCART and what system you're going to use it for. And from now on, I'm just going to go ahead and buy component because I think it's just a much easier option to go with. The second and last accessory I'm going to talk about is going to be this Action Replay Plus. This is a cart that goes inside the cart slot of the Sega Saturn. As you can see, it is suitable for the Sega Saturn. Now, Action Replay is synonymous with cheat devices, and if that's your kind of thing, this is totally a great device for you as well. But more importantly, this also does have 4 megabytes of memory storage, which I know the Sega Saturn is notorious for not having enough memory space, so you can transfer your saves over to this and make sure they're nice and safe. Another thing that I really wanted to get this for was because it does have a 4 megabyte RAM expansion card inside of it as well. So as soon as you plug it into the system will recognize that it has 4 megabytes of RAM expansion, and it'll allow you to play games that do require it, and some games even play better. The one that comes to mind is going to be Marvel Superheroes versus Street Fighter, and if you guys know, that game came out only in Japan, which means this card has another feature. It lets you play games from different regions, which is pretty awesome. So I'm going to go ahead and plug this in so we can give it a little test run just to see if it'll run Marvel Superheroes versus Street Fighter. So it looks like with the Action Replay plugged in, it starts you into the Action Replay Plus menu instead of the ODE menu. So I'm going to go ahead and just start the game here without any cheats. That's not what we're interested in. We're just interested in using the cart as a 4 megabyte RAM expansion card. Looks like it's changing resolutions a lot, so it's kind of making my Elgato wig out a little bit here. But yep, there it is. So this is the launch, and here is Marvel Superheroes versus Street Fighter. So let's go ahead and launch that real quick. Yep, and at this point, it would have given you an error saying like you need 4 megabytes, so it looks like it's going to work just fine.
Are you ready, true believers? Capcom and Marvel have joined forces.
Okay, looks like it's running pretty well here. So again, you would have gotten the error far before we even got to this main screen here, but let's go ahead and just do a little bit of a test run here. Oh yeah, look at this guy. I've never seen this guy. He must be a character only for the Japanese version of the game. Norimaru? I don't know who that is or what it's referencing, honestly. I have no clue.
Showtime.
Ready. Fight.
Let's switch over to him just to see what it looks like. Oh my god. Oh my goodness, this is hilarious. I want to see what a super is. I want to see what it is. Do it. Oh! I love it. It's hilarious. Our Sega Saturn is pristinely clean. We modded it with an ODE, the FinRare Duo, so we can play any game that we want. And we also used a action replay so we can play any game that requires a 4 MB RAM expansion. And even better, we can play any game from any region at any time, which makes this little Sega Saturn a complete system. Kind of. You guys know me. I went online and I spent way too much money on an empty Sega Saturn box and a manual so I can go ahead and have a complete system. Again, completely optional. I'm just weird. I'm just crazy like that. So hopefully you guys enjoyed these series of videos with the Sega Saturn. I am so excited to go ahead and play this. For now, I'm going to go ahead and put it in the box and put it in my video game storage area awaiting use. I am actually going to play that very soon because I know I'll be playing Resident Evil on the Sega Saturn, which is going to be a very weird experience considering I've only played it on the PlayStation. So thank you guys so much for joining me. If this is your kind of thing where somebody goes through and cleans up systems, repairs them if need be, and sometimes even mods them, make sure you hit that subscribe button. That way you're notified every time I post a video. Thank you guys so much, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.